We are back in the black hole of real estate, and we are finishing up tax season, and it's going to make it a little bit easier for some people to move forward on some of the things that they've been holding back on, and I'd love to tell you more about that today. This is your host, Ron Wojciechowski, for the black hole of real estate. And every year, so many people have these artificial deadlines where they can or maybe cannot do some things. And tax time is absolutely one of them. So April 15th is right upon us. We're going to roll right through that day, and magically on the other side, people will say, okay, now the tax season is done. I can do X, or I can do Y, or something. And for many people, it's one step closer to buying a home or selling a home or moving or making that first investment property purchase, mainly because it's on their mind. If it's April 15th in their filing, they probably owe a little bit of money or have a small refund. If they've had a big refund, they probably filed that a while ago, unless they were just super busy and didn't get around to it and felt that, hey, you know what, if I wait till April 15th and then I get my refund, I'll still have that refund to use for towards my down payment or my closing costs or something with the home purchase. And so that's where a lot of people are allowing themselves to take that next step. Now, for others, it could be January 1st. I just want to wait and see what happens after the first of the year, or wait and see what happens after an election, or wait and see what happens after the school year. And I can keep going with these. But the wait and see crowd, there's always one more wait and see around the corner. So when they finally hit critical mass and say, all right, now's the time we're going to do it, tax time seems to be the time that people are most self-aware of their financial acumen and how they can go forward, because now they have their financials prepared if they need financing with a lender, or they just need to make really good decisions. The math is already laid out for them with their CPA, so that's a really good time. I'd also tell you the busiest time that we find as far as activity levels is right before tax time and right after tax time. So if you're feeling like you're seeing a little bit more out there with regards to new listings or things going under contract, part of it might be this is a high activity time. Now, I didn't say high sales time, didn't say record topping sales or everything selling in 2 minutes. It's an activity level time, and the activity level is high. I think people are testing markets. They're getting information. They're getting advice from their CPAs about what to plan as they move forward. But the retracement for some is like, well, I better wait till school's out. And then over summer, we got vacation over the summer. We're kind of busy. I don't want to get anything started because we're going to be away for those 4 days. Okay. And all of a sudden, boom, now we're back to school year. So you see, and then it's, we just got started with the school year. I got to learn the bus drop-off thing, whatever that is. So there's always that one more thing for the one more thing crowd. But here's what gets interesting, because there's so much activity right now, people are paying attention to it. We're seeing that some of the exterior forces of taxes, tariffs are a big thing these days. Interest rates, those are all things that are, living rent-free in some people's minds, and that's okay. But as you get rid of one of those things, and maybe another, there's less clutter, and with less clutter comes more clarity on what might be possible to do next. And that's where the activity level gets super important for those that are thinking of moving forward. Quite honestly, some of the busier times we've experienced have been the month of August. And it would seem like, well, back to school. But if you think about it, the 30 and 60 or even 90-day closings that started back in April, May, and June, they're closing in July and into August. So it is a time where the increased activity levels today are leading to homes going under contract in 30 or 60 days and then closing in 60 or 90. That's the way this market will likely play out again this year. I don't want to think it is that, oh man, summer's always a busy time. Well, it's because so many people are introducing themselves or reintroducing to the market. Investors are seeing new homes coming on the market. Some homes are going from the rental market to sell. Some are switching to rentals. Others are making the first investment property. Some are selling off a portfolio. Hey, it's been a good year. I went my taxes. I realized that owning the Airbnb, when I paid all the bills, I made like $4,000, and the property went up, a few thousand last year. So maybe I'm $7,000 or $10,000 ahead, but it wasn't like and that would feel different than making a couple grand a month, let's say, because it comes in, but it gets netted out really fast, right? And with your CPA, when I look at our Airbnb property, the rent comes in and it feels magical when it comes in, but then we have the taxes and the insurances and the repairs that come along the way, which eats into that return on investment. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a good investment. It's done well over time. And we've done most of the work on it between special assessments, between renovations. There's not a lot left to do on it. So it should, over time, continue to bring in profits with less expenses. And in any investment property, you're going to have that burn and churn rate where it gets to a sweet spot where it gets pretty good on most properties. The good thing is if it's free and clear, then the value would likely continue to go up, and that would be a way to save, whether it's for retirement or passive income for life, those things. The rents would typically scale upward. So most investment properties do well over the course of time. Now, also with tax time, there's an equal and opposite groups like, okay, I've been doing these Airbnbs. I would like to switch over to single-family rentals. That might cause you to need to actually make a sale. Some of the properties do well in Airbnb are not necessarily the same ones that do well when you rent them as single-family homes. Single-family homes tend to be empty of furnishings. So if you have a former Airbnb property and you want to transition it, well, now you've got to do something with the furniture. Likely sell it for pennies on the dollar, and the dishes and the silverware will go the way of donations of the garage sale. And of course, there's that lingering feeling, boy, if I ever want to flip it back to Airbnb, I got to buy it all back at top dollar again and put it all back together. So I find that a lot of people that transition from a short-term rental property into a single-family long-term rental or condo long-term rental, sometimes they sell off the Airbnb one and then just repurchase a different one, lock in some profits on the first one, reinvest on the second, and maybe there's some tax strategies with the new property where they can accelerate the depreciation and get a good write-off. That's something that does work for many people. Listen, get the details from the person that does your taxes, not from the guy doing the real estate podcast, but accelerated depreciation. Mention that if you're buying a property and see if it's something that fits for you. Great tax strategy for a lot of people. As you do these investments, I would be remiss if I didn't mention 1031 exchange. It's tax time. If you sell a property and you don't want to pay the tax on the gain, and let's suppose you paid $200 for it and you're selling it for $300, and along the way you have built up the cost basis by things that make a difference in the house that are allowable. If you put an addition on, that would increase the cost basis. Painting it probably won't, but if you've done something material that makes it more valuable, your CPA would guide you on this, but it could make it more valuable. But let's just suppose that you didn't do anything valuable, and you bought it for $200, and you're going to sell it for $300, and there's $100,000 in gain, subtracting out whatever allowable closing costs are there. Now, if you're in the 25% tax bracket and you made $100,000, you're $25,000 in taxes or somewhere like that. And again, have your CPA do the numbers on that, but let's just use that number. You profited 100 and you're going to be taxed 25. Would it make sense to look at a 1031 exchange? You hire an intermediary, and there's plenty of them out there to do the 1031 exchange. You sell the property. They hold on to the money for you. Works kind of like a 401k. You can't touch it. Otherwise, it's taxable. It just stays with them. You have 45 days to identify the next property you're going to purchase. And then from there, you have 180 days with which to do the closing. If you don't perform during that time, it just comes back to ordinary income. You get the money from the intermediary company, your 1031 exchange company, and then you just pay your taxes, come next April 15th. But if you want to defer that out, you could do a sale, and then another sale, just exchange sales, 1031 exchange. And you can do several over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years, whatever, and then maybe pay the tax when you're in a lower income bracket or retired. Certainly outside of your high earning years, that might be a way to build more wealth without being taxed. See, that extra 25, if you just paid the tax on it, you'd have 75 to work with. If you didn't pay the tax, you'd have 100. Several subsequent purchases down the road, you might have several $100,000 because you'd have more money rolling together by putting off the taxes till later in the day. So I've given you some tax time strategies, some things that I noticed at this time of year which absolutely increase the activity level in the market. If you got questions, let me know. Definitely subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the black hole of real estate. This is your host, Ron Wojciechowski. Have a great week.